Hello and welcome to another episode of Brews Keys and House Keys. I am Nick Papantanakis. That is not Nicole Kostalecki. That is a special guest that we have on today, Steve Gueck of Arvada Electric. We're here doing the usual thing in Old Town Arvada at our Remax Alliance office, but today is one of our special interview episodes. So thanks for coming on today, man.
No problem, man. It's good to be here.
Pumped to have you here. We got lots to unpack because not only is Steve you are a very good electrician and you have been helpful to me as a homeowner and as a real estate agent, but also I've known you since I was 7 years old, I think.
Yeah.
So, and we're years old now. So, it's been a long time. So it's kind of cool. But maybe can we start off with you telling us a little bit about you? And
Sure. I mean, I'm Steve Gueck. I grew up here in Arvada. Lived my whole life, like pretty much right around the corner from Nick. Started being an electrician 2009, went through the apprenticeship, did all that. I got, 4 kids. It's crazy. Lots of time.
Lived in Hawaii a little bit.
Lived in Hawaii for a couple years, came back. I mean, we always joke, those of us that are from Arvada, it's like a black hole because you leave Arvada and then you come back. I mean, we lived in Kona. I could see Maui from our house. And then when it came to actually putting the kids in school and things like that, we're like, well, where do we want to be? And then inevitably it was like, let's go back to Arvada.
Yep.
And I mean, you joke, but if you're from here, if you know type situation.
I mean, we did it. We moved to San Diego. Same thing. We were minutes from the beach.
And it's like, I don't know.
And we're back.
When we were young, all you do is complain.
True.
I spent numerous Friday and Saturday nights in the parking lot of the Safeway, now 24 Hour Fitness at 64th and Ward, with your sister and her group of girlfriends and my buddies. And we would just sit there and go, hey, what do you want to do tonight? I don't know. What do you want to do? And you would sit there and ask each other what they wanted to do until it was like 11:30 and you had to go home. Because Old Town Arvada wasn't hot. You could come down here to do soapbox racing, right? Or little Pinewood Derby things. And then your dad would take you to the Army Navy store to go buy camping stuff.
And that was it?
And that was it.
That was it.
So
it was not a place.
It wasn't, we didn't have anything super rad to do, but it was just, Arvada is so boring. And then you get older and you have kids. I had to go out of my way to find trouble, which we were successful at doing.
Totally, of course.
But as a parent, I don't want trouble to find my kids. I want them to find it. And it was kind of like Arvada checked all those boxes.
That's the best outlook. That's the tagline for the city. I love that.
Trouble won't find you.
You must find trouble. But you can.
You can. I mean, it's like, the highlights. Like, you got to go find the glove in the corner of the drawing. It's like, there's trouble to find in Arvada.
That is outstanding.
If you want to.
Yep.
Were the skate parks around?
So,
not the ones, not the big ones.
Not the big one. The Apex Center was brand new. So I had 2 buddies that drove Zambonis for the Apex Center. And so we would, as a group of idiot high school dudes, roll up to the Apex Center, come in, and then we would have competitions sliding various items across to say who did the best ice. Like, it was probably about as like Minnesotan as a bunch of dudes from Arvada.
It was our sliver. Like, it was the sliver of the Midwest.
What do you think about the ice that I made?
Boy, that went real far, yeah.
Oh yeah, man. My wallet went to the other side, don't you know? Like
super scientific.
It was
It was experimental.
And, there's parents like looking, and other kids are like, "What'd you guys do tonight?" "Oh, we slid stuff on ice."
Yeah. I mean, it's better than things you could have been doing.
It could have, yeah. I mean,
could have been a lot worse.
We stayed out of trouble.
Could have been a lot worse.
There's probably reasons why your father still respects me.
That's exactly right.
My idiot group of friends were
pretty innocuous.
Yeah.
Compared to some.
That's true.
Each other?
No, I don't know. That's true, actually.
Yeah. There was times.
That's a good point, actually.
A sport with the stones?
Curling.
Yeah,
oh, man. Yes, dude.
If that had been exposed at that time, there would have been some like
sit on a
Ace
sled
hardware
and like
brooms bought and some serious like
human curling
with McDonald's trays and like when the lake froze over.
Okay.
Like Lake Arbor, it would be thick enough where you could just put a dude on a McDonald's tray and see how far you could get him to go.
That's pretty smart. I mean,
that was I guess didn't McDonald's go away from having trays for a while too? Never mind making that up.
I don't know.
We abused McDonald's trays.
Yeah.
We abused the McDonald's that we went to, they don't make them anymore, but it was like, you'd come in and this was the one where the Kmart was.
Yes.
And you'd come in and there was like a glass partition. And then you walk in, the glass partition, and then there was seats. And I'm sure at some point, McDonald's corporate caught on and was like, listen, we got to get rid of this glass partition because like the employees are tired of cleaning pickles. Because you take the pickles out the cheeseburger and you throw it on there
and they race.
Pickle races.
You wait and see.
And you wait and see. And it's just,
it was an episode. It was part of Billy Madison too. Yeah, great movie.
In the movie.
Yeah,
great movie.
And it's, you know, I mean, those are things that like our kids will not understand about how glorious it was because like we didn't have cell phones with apps on it and everything. No, it was, you know, I mean,
we had to find our own trouble.
You had to figure it out, and you find your own trouble.
Find your own trouble.
It's the internet wasn't at your fingers, like you know.
I don't even think it was around.
So your sister,
yeah, we're old. That's right.
Your sister drove your mom's convertible, the blue
Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme convertible.
So, my boy Clayton, who grew up around the corner, and mind you, he's like a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force now. Uber responsible, prolific mustache.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I haven't seen the mustache.
Yeah, he grew one.
Attaboy. I mean,
he
Lieutenant Colonel, the mustache's name is Lieutenant Colonel,
yeah,
right?
I think it literally they came to pin it on him and it just sprouted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Totally checks out.
And so he had a 1987 Honda Accord that his dad bought him.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing was a death trap. But, and you know, obviously, kids, wear your seatbelts.
Yes.
But
we always did.
It had the back seat that folded down and the trunk that popped. Your sister was 3 cars back. It just so happened that your neighbor, Nathan, my best friend, had a bunch of water balloons that he brought. So we're sitting at a stoplight and we get this like thing stretched across the back. 3 of us climb in the back, laying in the trunk. 2 hands come out and pull it, and we are launching water balloons over cars trying to get your sister. And I'm pretty sure we hit every car but hers. We may have gotten it once, and she pulls up and she's like, if you get a water balloon in this car, I'll tell my mom.
Well, she wouldn't need to tell our mom because mom babied that car like it was her favorite child. So there was no getting around anything that happened to that car. Yeah. The fact that she even let Tina drive it is impressive.
It was
I didn't get to drive it.
And I think that spurred it on even more. Oh, yeah. It was like, we got to do this.
Well, naturally.
And so, yeah.
Of course.
Your folks were always the nice ones. Like my buddy Adam's dad was the one that we were mortified of. Like
Adam's dad was scary.
He was just the dude.
I met him once. And
super hairy dude would come like halfway down the stairs and be like, hey boys, party's over. And there was no like, no, let's keep. It was like, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And we would just like file out like we were chain gang leaving for prison. Like the warden said it's time to go and we're gonna go. Like, you know, I mean,
yard time's over.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that's a bit of background as to our shenanigans.
And I like that all wraps into just our lives in Arvada because it has changed dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that you and I now work in a business where we're trying to, I don't know, be a part of, I kind of be a part of the growth.
Right.
And the continued growth of Arvada. I mean, that's kind of about what we both do in our own different ways. So I think that's kind of rad to be able to, like you said, get sucked back in. Can't help it.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal.
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about kind of your experience with real estate agents and home buyers. But first, it is Brewskis and Housekeys.
Right.
But we're not drinking Brewskis. We're doing another one of our patented NA episodes today because it is 10:15 in the morning and Steven and I just roll like this. So these are kombucha from Rowdy Mermaid that we found. When I asked Steve what he wanted to drink this morning, he said any kind of kombucha. So I'm a kombucha fan too. Do you have a favorite?
Man, I mean, I can't remember the brand. Any kombucha that comes off of like a tap, I'm pretty set with. There's a mojito one. The Dr. Brew ones are okay that you can get at Costco. Yeah. I like it where it's got bite, right? Like you know that you're drinking something kind of vinegary and just to give you that.
I love that.
Because when I did drink beers back in the day, when I brewed them, I was like an IPA guy. Like the hoppier, the better. And so I think that was my replacement for that catch was like the bite that comes with the kombucha.
100%. And I love sour stuff anyway, so that's my jam with it too. This one is pretty tame, actually.
It's mild.
Not in a bad way.
No.
It tastes good. This one is Alpine Lavender, and yours is what?
I don't know.
Peach.
So
savory
these
peach.
ones are like, this type is kind of dangerous in a sense because they go down really, really smooth.
Yep.
It's almost like a juice type.
Yeah.
With a little bit of, the carbonation and fizz. So it's like you could, unwatched, you'd probably have like 6 of these.
And it could get real expensive.
It could get real expensive. And you'd be like, oh, that was.
Do they have a lot of calories?
No.
45.
No, they're slim. They're gluten-free.
Right.
They're non-GMO. They're plant-based. I actually read about these guys a little bit. They're super cool. They're based out of Boulder, Colorado. Started back in 2012. And they're big on the process of not only how they make it, but everything they do, including the ink that they put on their labels or the steps they take in their actual systems to be environmentally responsible. I didn't dive deep on that, but they're kind of a family-based company, and so they were really, that was part of their messaging was we want our systems to be 100% healthy, not only for your body system to take this in, but also how we do the fermentation and brewing process. I don't know. I found it fascinating, and I like the local aspect for sure. So
yeah, no, it's
so they do a good job. But I'm a fan. I'm a fan of. There was one that Bluegrass down the street had on tap too. I'm not sure what the brand was. It was local.
Yeah,
and I think the one I had was like either passion fruit or like something. It was like a bright fuchsia color.
Yeah.
The best that I have had
in
my life. It was so good. So
yeah,
a lot of the breweries do them too, which is cool.
It is. I mean, well, they got to figure out the non-alcoholic aspect,
which
of
is
it, right? Because
that's
a
booming
big draw.
business. It's a booming business.
It is
Seriously.
There was a spot when we lived in Kona. There was a spot on the beach, so it's called Ali'i Drive, right? The beach cruise. So we stopped. We go in, and they had one that was like hibiscus.
Ooh. Well, definitely like digging in on unique and exciting beverages. Let's talk a little bit about your profession, your vocation, as far as like, what that means in the game of real estate and home ownership.
I mean, I got into being an electrician just because it was an opportunity, and worked big commercial, industrial, broke into doing my own thing. As far as real estate wise, I mean, any additions, any kind of changes you're going to have in your house, if you're moving stuff, it's going to involve moving wiring. It's going to involve adding things. And code dictates and changes so much from one year to the next year. So like your house, for instance, that was built in the 60s, your kitchen probably has 3 electrical circuits to it.
It's got 2 outlets,
right?
The entire kitchen.
You got 2 outlets on the counter, and then you're going to have one for a microwave maybe, and then you'll have one that's shared for the dishwasher and disposal. The issue you're going to run into now is a standard kitchen is 7 circuits. You have two just countertop circuits, and you can't have any plug farther than 4 feet apart. If there's a counter that's over 18 inches, it needs to have it. Because if you've noticed, it's logic. Anytime you have an appliance, it's got a 2-foot cord. That's the longest that kitchen countertop appliances are. So you have to, any piece of counter has to be within 2 feet of a plug.
Dude, I didn't know that.
So, and then any counter that's over 18 inches. So if you have that little sliver between the oven and the fridge and it's over 18 inches, it's got to have a plug there.
Wow.
Because you can plug something in. So you have the 2 countertops. The dishwasher has to be its own circuit. The disposal has to be its own circuit. The microwave has to be its own circuit. The fridge has to be its own circuit. And then, of course, your oven.
So my wife and I have talked about a kitchen remodel in our home. We would be talking about some serious digging in to do it right.
To do it right, I mean, based upon where your guys' panel is and the room that's in it.
Pretty easy.
It's easier, realistically wise, electrically wise, you're about $3,000.
Yeah.
Because
that doesn't surprise me.
Because you're going to have to go through and add all those plugs and dictate everything, take out what's existing, try to reuse what we can and what you can't. So, I mean, those are the things that I found is a lot of folks watch HGTV. And, I mean, it's kind of like what y'all deal with in the real estate world, right? They watch property virgins and whatever. And the lady's like, yeah, I want to buy a house that's at least 6,000 square feet on 2.3 acres. And, I want a pool and a 4-car garage with a fountain. And I want it to be between the blocks of 64th and Ward and 72nd in Indiana. And my budget's $383,000. Like, it's just, you don't even have a Bud Light budget. Like, you have a champagne Moet Gold Star taste with a Schlitz budget. Like, there's expectations, and they have this fallacy that things don't take that much time or money.
Well, and we've had that conversation, Nicole and I, on different episodes, especially when we talk about like the market updates,
Right.
where we talk about, if prices are X or, days on market are Y, whatever they are, that has to be an upfront conversation about those expectations. And it's got to be the same for you. Like, this is what you can do within that budget,
right.
or this is what it's going to cost to do what you want to do.
And it is. I mean, and that's the biggest thing as far as like tying it in with what I do lots of inspection objections.
Yep.
And you've probably had your chats about inspectors, and they're my biggest beef, they're really good people. You can chat with them. There's no governmental certification. There's no standardization of any inspector from company to company. They don't have to go take a test with DORA, the regulatory agencies, to get certified to do it. So if you're Nick P's inspections and your big focus is, I want to look and make sure that the electrical panel is pretty. And then I'm Steve G's inspectors, but my big thing is I want to make sure that the paint is good and there's no peeling anything. You're going to get two entirely different inspection reports
100%.
Based upon who goes and does it. And then they don't even have necessarily the code knowledge to understand. They'll red flag things that are super big issues when they're not. And then it puts you guys as agents in a tailspin because somebody's like, oh my, like they said that there's holes in the electrical panel, which is standard. They're built with what's called a knockout. You knock it out, you put wire through it. That's what it's there for. They'll put, oh, it's a big fire hazard. There's a hole in the panel. So then they set off and now your buyers are hesitant because they're freaked out about the whole house. And then I come in as an electrician and go, that's a 3-minute fix.
Well, that's just it, is that one of those conversations that, I will for sure have with clients, and I think agents probably do, hopefully for the most part, is your general home inspection is just that.
Right.
They will tell you everything they find because that's their job.
Right.
However, what you need to realize as a homeowner is no home is perfect. There's going to be things.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't actually done a big episode on inspections. We've done a little bit, but we could probably stand to do a little bit more. And it really is that tampering expectations and just making sure that everybody understands that it's not the end of the world when you find these things. Everything is solvable.
Right.
It may have a price tag with it, but it's solvable, and it doesn't need to be something that flares up, right? And freaks you out.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's what I primarily have having, it comes to the point, like you and I were talking a little bit earlier, when you're ready to list a house, right? And let's just say it's your grandparents' house and it's flash frozen in 1978. Does it make more sense to spend the $60,000 to update bathrooms and a kitchen to get that ROI on selling it, or do you just let it go? Because then once you're at a point when you don't have the updated house that lots of people are going to want, you have to find the right buyer that's going to come in and see the potential, which in most instances you're going to get lowballed because it's going to be investors. It's going to be somebody like my wife or myself that comes in and says, hey, I could flip this thing and put that $60K into it, but sell it for an additional $130.
But my purchase price has to be here to get there.
For me, because I have to pay, the closing costs. I have to pay your hard money lenders. So you're into it $3,000 a month in just interest to hold on to it. And then you're waiting on stuff. So those are the things that, like, when I go to people's houses, I try to have those conversations with them as far as like, hey, unfortunately, what I do aside from the lights is all hidden in walls. But those are the things that you want done right. Like, it's not plumbing fixtures that people are going to see. Yes, I can hang a chandelier and that'll be great. But like, if your wiring isn't correct, or for instance, like the clients that you sent me that had aluminum wiring, it's expensive to come and pigtail it, but it's a safety thing, right? Because that's
100%.
So it's just, like you say, it's setting reasonable expectations and having good communication.
So that is one of the reasons, not to toot your horn for you, but I mean, I like referring you out to people because you'll be honest, you'll be genuine, and you'll set those expectations up front.
Right.
Those folks that you referenced, they were renting this house for a while and then ended up being able to purchase it. Mm-hmm. And once you purchase, you do the inspection.
Right.
They learned so much about this house they didn't know, and they had lived there for a few years.
Right.
And the aluminum wiring was one where they honestly were a little panicky because of the way the inspector talked about it with them. Now, it's fine for the inspector to point out all the things that are not up to code.
Right.
But the house wasn't built when today's code was written.
Right.
So that's where it's nice to have you come in. Not that the inspector did a bad job.
Right.
But inspectors are general. You are focused on your specific avenue and you're good at it. So that makes a big difference for the end user.
Well, and a lot of people, like, they hear aluminum and the first thing they think, I have to rewire the whole house. So aluminum wiring, the failure point is connections, right? Because aluminum as a metal, it expands and contracts. So if the plug is just sitting there, the wire is perfectly on the little screw on the side of the outlet. You plug in a vacuum. It's a high amperage, quick draw. So that's going to create more heat. So like those are, TV isn't going to draw that much and it's going to be more consistent. But you turn on the vacuum. That's why a lot of people, when you turn on a vacuum, your lights dim.
For half a second. Yep.
It's a big amp draw. So it's going to create, so that heat heats up and eventually that wire expands and contracts and gets loose on that screw. Loose connections create extra heat. So as that goes, that can eventually become loose. If it comes off and it's just barely touching it, it'll start to spark. That's how those happen. What we do is called pigtailing. You add copper to the actual device, about 6 inches of it, and then you come off and you wire nut it with a specialized listed wire nut to go from copper to aluminum. That cures the issue. The wiring in the walls isn't going to just catch fire. Like, that's not going to happen. So if anybody's out there that has aluminum wiring, you're not going to have your house spontaneously combust.
This is why I have him on. This is why we're having him on here. This is the reason right now.
From aluminum wiring. If you ever watched any videos on it, it would always originate at a device and then the burn would go from there up.
Sure.
It's just the way that it is. And so changing that out, getting the proper wire nuts, doing it the correct way, it solves the issue. So, but there's also a cost associated with it. It's like $65 to do each device. And so you look at a bathroom and people will start tabulating it like a bathroom. Standard bathroom, you have 2 switches, right? You'll have one for the fan and you'll have one for the light, and then you'll have a GFI outlet in there. So that bathroom by itself is suddenly going to be $200, basically, give or take. So it adds up quick, but it's also the right way to do it. So it's being upfront about things and communicating and having good communication with the agent and the people and making sure everybody's on the same page. Because the last thing, especially because we were going to talk about first-time homebuyers, is I feel a majority of first-time homebuyers are totally blindsided by the entire experience.
Totally.
I mean, I got 4 kids, so it's one of those scenarios where it's like, we had our first. My God, the kid was easy. He ate everything, was polite, was the best kid. I have the 4th now, and if he had been my first, we would have had only. I've been through the experience of having 3 kids, my wife has, and every single day, oh yeah, it'll be fine. The 4th one came in, it was like, holy hell, what is actually happening? First-time homebuyers know what they're getting into. They have expectations, but the whole process of everything still blindsides them because it's just, you don't know all the inner workings of this and that in the emotional attachment, right? So you find clients that are super stoked about a house. Oh my God, I love this house. I want it. And it's like that emotional attachment will make you make irrational decisions. I get it. You love it. But like, are you really willing to spend all of these things to get to that situation?
It's not just the box.
It's not just
getting the box.
It's
getting everything that goes with it.
Right. And say, so you come across a house that has aluminum wiring and there's 2 other offers that come in at the same time. And you know that to have Arvada Electric come out and pigtail, it's going to be $5,500. Do you have the budget to pay that $5,500 if the sellers aren't going to give it to you? So, being in communication with that, especially for first-time homebuyers, and having it ease the situation of like, it's not just you buying the house. It's the team of people that your agent that you have around you that bring you to the situation that can ease you into it overall.
And I think the big piece of that puzzle is to educate, and
right.
And that's what you're talking about doing,
right?
And that's our job too as agents, is just to make sure that is all happening up front. That is all happening as part of the initial process,
right?
Not once you get to inspection and all of a sudden it's this mind explosion,
right?
It's got to be something that's laid out, and obviously you're not going to think of everything and catch everything, but that's what one thing Dad is amazing at is laying out those expectations very calmly and clearly, and then not having the emotional attachment, even if the client does.
Right.
And you can't help that. That's fine.
Right.
But to stay detached, that is the job of the professionals.
Right. And I have a ton of respect for agents because it's like, so I give lots of bids, and there's plenty of people that are like, oh, no, I'll go with somebody else, or you're too much, or we decided not to do it. But I've only invested a small portion of time going and doing that and then making the quote.
Right.
I've known Zach McGuire, as a matter of fact.
Shout out.
One of my brother's friends, one of my older brother's friends, is so indecisive. I think Zach finally took him to like 35 or 40 homes over the course of like 3 years. And he's still renting because he just couldn't make a decision. And it's like, that's time lost. And, for you guys, if you go through and okay, so we've looked at these houses, we've been in communication with the seller's agent, and we've done all these things, or the buyer's agent, and then it gets to the inspection. And for some reason, Sally homeowner cannot get over the fact that like, there's no, I don't know, the hot water or something doesn't work right in one bathroom. Yeah. Understanding that that's something that's fixable, very reasonably fixable, but they can't get over it. And then you end up with like, that has to be fixed and this has to be done. And then expectations grow of what should happen, because there is folks out there that take that minute detail and say, well, the whole house must be wrong, or the seller refuses to fix it. And it's like, you've now just spent 50, 60 hours of time communicating, taking people to have a mouse dropping, cancel your sale.
Yeah. And it's easy to get, because we've done it a lot.
Right.
It's easier for us to stay objective. But the other piece of that puzzle, and the other thing that I try to remind myself about when I'm in those modes, is it's not about me and
right.
being objective. It's the fact that this is this person's first time.
Right.
Or this is brand new to this person. They've never experienced this
right.
before. So back to what you said before, I think knowing that and how much, Phil, our managing broker here, says it all the time. The primary commodity we deal in is emotion.
Right.
It's not homes. It's not this, that, and the other. It's emotion.
Brilliant.
And it's exactly right for this kind of realm, because so much gets tied to that. Whether it's your first or your fifth or your 100th home that you're
right.
buying, there is still some emotional piece to it. Even you guys probably feel it a little as
right.
the flipping piece
of
it.
And even from a contractor standpoint, right? Like there's 1,000 dudes that probably live within 6 miles of here that could come do wiring and do an outlet. But it's like the emotional component of, do you make somebody feel safe while you're there? Do you make them feel safe when you're gone? Do you do all of the things and communicate okay? Because although there is certain aspects of what we do that's very, very, very necessary, you're not having to do your kitchen remodel. You've made an emotional choice that your life will be exponentially better by doing that. So you've made that choice at that point. So you have to move forward with it. And then it's our job as contractors to reassure you of that, or to rein you back in of like, listen, man, like, you don't need 76 can lights in a 10 by 10 kitchen. Like, so
why?
So like, that's one of my biggest things that I love doing is on all my wife's flips in our own houses. Like I don't want dark kitchens. So like, if you're going to do a kitchen remodel, and if it's going to cost $200 additional or $180 additional per recessed can light, just talk through, if you wanted to use me, that'd be great, but talk through with your electrician of where they're putting them and make sure you get the light where you want. There's very calculated ways of doing it. So in your current kitchen, is there dark spots?
Yes.
What I would come through, and it's like, okay, I'm going to figure out where all your upper cabinets are, and based upon where you're going to have your workspace. At the edge of the counter, I'm going to put one directly there. So it's 26 inches off the wall, straight up. That way you don't get shadowing, because if it's behind you while you're working on the counter, it's going to be shadowed.
See,
so you come on either side of it, and then what I did, like when we sold our last house, I had like 26 can lights in our kitchen because it was big. It was huge, the kitchen was. But what I want is to be able to dim that down, but not have dark spots. So I want even light, because they created dimmer switches for a reason in dimmable lights. Why not have more than you need when you want it, and then have it down where you could have it next to nothing but still see everything? So like if it's $400 separating a phenomenal lighting in your kitchen or not, find that money, because you could do a bomb kitchen remodel, but if it's still dark, people won't like it.
Well, and I think probably my favorite thing that you said within that brings kind of everything home for me is the people that do the flips or that do remodels or do the kind of things that you and your wife do.
Right.
There are people that do it well and correctly and
Right.
think about these kind of things. There are people that do not.
Right.
And the ones that do it well are making quality, lasting impacts on those homes versus I just need to get this off my financial plate.
Right.
And so I like that as an idea of like holistic for the whole house, not
Right.
just the electrical.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's true. I mean, my wife is this absolute believer. She doesn't call it flipping. She calls it renovating and relisting, because she takes something and like she doesn't want the easy ones. She doesn't want the cosmetics, as it's called, where you just come through and you take all those blemishes and you take the stuff and you just put paint over
you
it.
put white paint and gray floors in and you're good to go,
Yep,
right?
Yep, basically.
Is that
That's
what you
it's
do?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then change out a couple plugs and switches and do some lights. She's like, you know what? So we did a house over by Lake Arbor that had a non-load bearing wall in the middle that had these funky arches. All of them gone. Another one made the kitchen twice the size. So instead of having, because I mean, y'all are around, formal dining rooms
Are
are kind of not really
on their way out, we'll
Right.
say. It's a good way
So
to put
you take that dining space and you make the kitchen bigger and you extend the island. So like if this table
it.
is
It's a dining space.
right, you extend it where you have half of it usable, and then you make it an additional 6 feet where you can put 5 stools on it.
Yeah.
It's an eat-in and it's more functional. So she doesn't want to do the easy ones. She wants to knock walls down. She wants to reshape the whole house. Her idea is when the neighbors are nosy, she wants them to come through on the walkthrough on the open house and be like, wow, how did they do this with this house?
Yeah.
Not like, oh, this is the same as my house. It's just been painted. And so I think her mentality and her drive for that kind of transpires over to how I've directed my side of the business of doing the electrical, of like, there's certain aspects of like when you're there, the idea to do good electrical is you don't want people to know you've been there.
I like that.
Other
like that.
than like when I did Nico's house, when I had to cut your ceiling, but like you have lights in areas that probably none of your neighbors have lights.
Correct.
And it makes an enormous difference with how you live, because it's a big difference to have overhead lighting that shines down with a wider array that's even lighting versus you have a lamp in the corner. And so the idea, like go to a Chipotle, look up to the ceiling, see if you see electrical conduit. You'll see them. You won't notice them. I look at it every single time.
Yeah.
IKEA, the parking lot, I'm like, ooh. Like,
Yeah. Those concentric bends are shit.
right. That's kind of, and it's like, that's just being proud of your craft. But it's like, when I go to somebody's house and I change things out, I'm going to take all my mess with me. I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that it's like I was never there. And so it's not a negative impact on your life, but the benefit is there afterwards. So, it transpires to all across the board of like, do things the way you would do them in your own house.
Pride of your work, I think, is probably a really good takeaway,
Right.
in my opinion, because that's true for what I do for a living.
Right.
It's true, obviously true for you. It's true for Nico and how amazingly he clips these podcasts together and everything else that he does
Right.
for us here, along with all of his other amazing skills. But it's real to just it's almost like you have to slow down and recognize that that's an important function of you
Right.
and your job.
Right.
And it's hard for anyone in any industry really to get too far into that rabbit hole in their head. They just focus on the next thing.
Right.
And they don't slow down and recognize. And I'm kind of talking about myself too, that it's important to slow down and have that moment.
It
And
is.
Think about it from a quality standpoint.
I have a weird memory. Like I remember everybody. So like my wife always gets irritated because we'll go out places and I'm like, oh, that was such and such. I went to elementary school with them. Like it's just, and it's Arvada thing,
Yeah.
right? Because
Oh,
it's all like,
Absolutely.
I know Nico through like 3 other people, even though we may have met once 4 lifetimes ago in like 5 different careers ago, but we know a lot of the same people. So like we could end up at the same event and I could start on this side of the room, he could start on that side. And then inevitably we'd end up in the middle because all the same people. So it's just, I like running into people that I've done work for and being able to communicate with them. And it's like, you have to do a job a certain way that you're not trying to hide from those people, you welcome those post interactions instead of being like, oh, this guy's going to be mad because like,
oh, I don't want to see him.
Right.
Oh man,
so
I wish he wasn't here.
Yeah. But inevitably, with service industries as anything, you cannot make everybody happy.
Well, that's true too.
And it's really how you can handle those situations as well. Like
it's taking the good with the bad, but it's also that objectivity still being able to stay objective.
Yep.
And I think I agree with that 100%. It's really easy to get wrapped up in the emotional side, but it's not emotional. It's not personal.
Right.
It is still your job.
Right.
And I think that's an important piece of the puzzle. I feel like I could probably sit and talk to you about this for another 5.5 hours.
Probably.
You probably have things you need to do with your day. So I cannot thank you enough for coming on.
This was great.
It's been a ton of fun. I love the stories about childhood too. That made me extremely happy. And Tina is a listener, so enjoy that one,
dude.
buddy.
So one last one for Tina.
Yes.
She used to get so upset with Nathan, Clayton, Chris, and myself because we'd show up to your house and your dog had a particular stuffed monkey that it would hump.
It enjoyed a lot.
Yes, it had.
She really liked that monkey.
A very healthy relationship with.
She loved that monkey.
And
loved that.
So we would find it and drop it on the floor, and Tina would be like, "Why do you do that?" Because it's awesome. And then she would always tell us, why you would try to come down and hang out.
Of course.
And it was
you guys were older and cool. And I was not.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty freaking rad. So like you would want to come down and she'd be like, Nick, go away. And I would always be like, no, dude, he's with us. And she would be like, she was, you get the Tina death glare.
Oh.
And it's like, you could just start to feel yourself like callousing over. Like, I better get a shield because I'm about to get like shanked.
Several daggers all at once.
And it was great because you would always come down and be like, hey, what's up?
What are you guys
she'd be like,
doing?
why are you down here? Be like, oh, yeah, I told Nick to come down. And Nathan would always be like, why do you always invite him back? Because A, Nick's cool, and B, it really pisses Tina off. So.
We love you, Tina.
Yes.
We love you.
Yes.
We do. Thanks again, man.
No,
I really do appreciate it. If you guys need electrical work, call me or call Steven directly. But I'll make sure I've got his number on speed dial. He knows it, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Appreciate
That's perfect. Arvada Electric is where you need to go. And then thank you to Rowdy Mermaid. You guys are awesome. Tasty,
good.
Tasty beverage. Finished them and feel like I could do another 6, like you said.
Yeah.
So, and as always, thank you guys for listening.
Yep.
If there's any questions about anything that we talked about in this episode today, don't hesitate to reach out. If you haven't subscribed, you're missing out. And so you need to. So please click that button on the YouTube page, on Apple Podcasts, so you automatically get the downloads. You don't have to think about it. You just get to listen to it every week. And then we will be back with another episode soon. So thank you, sir. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers.